Okay, so to start, let's acknowledge that we are here gathered on the traditional unceded, meaning stolen, lands of the Coast Salish people who have stewarded these lands and waters since time immemorial. Today is National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, a new holiday created to recognize our atrocious history of colonial violence and the legacy of residential schools that First Nations children were forced to attend as recently as the 1990s. I had something kind of a bit vicious written about that history, but I won't take up a whole bunch of time because you guys are all here to hear from them. And I'd like to inspire us to move forward in a good way rather than making us all feel guilty. So I hope your reflection on reconciliation will extend past today. Let us work together towards a better future for everyone. And if nothing else, I encourage you to read a book this winter by an Indigenous author. And with that, I will hand it over to our moderator, Lisa Johnson, who will introduce the candidates.
Stay away from the speakers. Hi, I'm Lisa Johnson, and I'm going to be moderating the meeting tonight. So on the LCA team tonight, there is Hillary, Emily, myself, and then as guests, there is Joseph and Andrew, who will be reading the questions, and then there's Ian, who's doing sound for us. And the most important people tonight are Tom Weinert, Dave Olson, Inja West, Tim Peterson, Michelle Smith, Kyla Laroni, and Dave Rogers. Whew, that was a lot of people. So, what we're going to do, you guys all got the notices in the emails about what the rules are. So if anybody gets unruly, loud, personal, they will be asked to leave the meeting because we want a nice, fun, fair meeting tonight, basically. So I guess we're just gonna start because we have limited time. We might take a break halfway through. I don't know. We don't have a lot of time and there's a lot of questions. So let's get started. Oh, and we are recording this. Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. Sorry. You guys have 2 minutes each to start. Sorry. See, I told you guys I was going to screw up. So we're going to start with Tom and go this way, and they get 2 minutes each for their opening remarks. Then the questions. Then, if we have time, we'll take questions from the audience, and then closing remarks.
Whenever you're ready, Tom.
Hi, I'm Tom Weinert. I've lived on Lasqueti Island for 50 years. I've been a trustee before, and I know that the job entails real-world responsibilities and obligations to the community. My approach is a deep dive. I read, study, and understand all of the paperwork that the staff provides so that I can effectively discuss the recommendations and promote Lasqueti-centric initiatives. If elected, I will work to bring the issue of long-term affordable rental housing to the forefront. Our OPC highlights the need for these rental units. I want to discuss the means of establishing that possibility. Lasqueti is not like the other islands in the trust. We're different. We need trustees who are engaged and who can defend our unique lifestyle. I can and will do that. My background and experience will enable me to hit the road running. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. I'm excited to practice democracy with you, and thanks also to the LCA exec for hosting and organizing this meeting. I thought it was a no-brainer that all the candidates would be invited to something like this, but people behind the Lasqueti local proved me wrong on Wednesday. So here's a special thank you to the exec for inviting me and all the other candidates here. Speaking of which, how rich are we to have 7 candidates to choose from? So grateful. Before you ask us questions, I have a quick question for all of you. Please raise your hand if you moved to Lasqueti to have more government in your life. You didn't think so. So a little bit about me. Some of you know me as the editor and publisher of Lasqueti's other paper. Others know me as a purveyor of headlamps and light bulbs and a cob builder. Many know me as Anisha's father. And a few know me as the local trust committee's minute taker for 6.5 of the last 7 years. I attended every LTC meeting, read every agenda package from cover to cover, about 5,000 pages, and I attended every APC meeting for the last 8 years or so. My platform is simple: stop government overreach. But how? Well, first, minimize it. If elected and the other trustee agrees, we will reduce the number of official meetings from 6 to 2 each year. The other 4 meetings will be community meetings where we work on issues important to us. Another way to shrink government is to reduce its budget. This year, 80% of residents wanted no increase, and 49% wanted the Islands Trust budget to decrease. It went up 2.3%. So what's the best way to do something? Lead by example. Trustee salaries went up by 8.7% over the last term. If elected, I will try to decrease salaries by the same amount. I look forward to your questions.
Sorry, that was a little hot. Yeah, noted.
Sorry, Dave.
Hello everyone, my name's Inja West. I'm sure the majority of you already know me. I wanted to start off my speech, since it is a day of truth and reconciliation, by adding my respects for all the children and victims of the residential schools. All of the information that comes to light recently is absolutely appalling, and my heart goes out to all the Indigenous community. I would have worn an orange shirt today in solidarity, but realized this morning I don't actually own one. I have doubts about winning this election my first year round, especially with all these far more qualified candidates up here running, but I do want to thank everyone in the community who has shown their support so far. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a Lasqueti local of 17 years now, originally from Salt Spring Island, but I feel incredibly blessed to be able to call this little island home. I know I haven't been extremely active or involved in community meetings or the like in the past, but I've realized I've been absent from community discussion for far too long, which therefore has inspired me to run for Islands Trust this year. The Islands Trust was enacted in 1974 to preserve and protect our islands and surrounding waters. I want to do just that to our very way of Lasqueti life over here, with an emphasis on maintaining all the qualities that make this beautiful island what it is today, the tight-knit, self-sufficient community that we all know and love. As I am originally from Salt Spring Island, I've seen firsthand the problems that can arise from aggressive development and excessive population growth. So my stance is naturally against those at its core, which I believe is in line with the intention of the Islands Trust mandate initially. But I do realize the island is changing. I just hope that together as a community, we can guide the island's future in a positive direction we can all enjoy. I personally love this island just the way it is and don't want to see it change too drastically. And if you share the same sentiment, I hope that maybe you'll take a chance this coming election on the 15th and cast a vote my way. Thank you all for your time.
Hi everyone, I'm Tim Peterson. I'd start by acknowledging that today is the National Truth and Reconciliation Day, and that I'm grateful to live and work here on the territories of many Coast Salish peoples and the treaty territory of the Tla'amin Nation. My priorities as your trustee are to continue to work the work of First Nations reconciliation, complete our official community plan, and to review our land use bylaw to ensure it aligns with the goals expressed in the OCP. I want to thank the LCA's OCP Steering Committee for the immense amount of work they put into multiple public meetings that form the basis of their recommendation to the local trust committee, and which constitutes the most robust public engagement in the entire trust area. If re-elected, I will continue to seek a broad range of public input as these important projects continue, which I see as vital to produce the OCP and LUB that best matches the wishes of the community. At Trust Council, I would also continue to advocate for local autonomy and to remain an engaged and effective voice representing the people of Lasqueti. I will continue to speak out against regional policies that do not align with our community's goals and values, and to speak in favor of those that do. I would continue to keep myself and our community informed about the projects of Trust Council and its committees, and do so using the plainest language that I can. I see my strengths as being open-minded and genuinely interested in diverse points of view, active listening, and taking your opinions into account in decision-making. I have a firm understanding of the work of the local Trust Committee and Trust Council and its committees, especially following what has been a challenging and eventful term. And if re-elected, I will take that knowledge into the new term and share it with whoever my co-trustee may be. Lasqueti's been my home since childhood, and I will work diligently to preserve and protect our community and our shared values in all I do.
Hello, Lasqueti. So nice to see you guys all out here, and looks like we're going to have a fabulous event for you tonight. I do want to say that with so many issues today, it really warms my heart and gives me some hope to see so much interest in local politics. I think is very important. I'm here today before you because I hold strong beliefs and attachments to our way of life. However, I want you to also know that I will not put those beliefs before the good of the community. One of the reasons I believe I'm a strong candidate is because I'm a highly conscientious person. This means that I will choose the path for the good of the community, even if it will require more work and effort on my part. I will bring subjects to our attention, even if that makes for difficult conversations. And I will follow the needs of our community, even if I personally disagree. I'm looking forward to tonight's questions and hearing what everyone has to say. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I suspect you all know me. If you don't, please come up after the question period and introduce yourself. I grew up on Lasqueti and I moved back 3 years ago. I was off island getting a French degree at UVic, becoming a hairdresser in Montreal, and living and working on boats. Since returning, I've been very active in the community. I volunteer as a first responder and dispatcher for the fire department and serve on the board for the health center. I've worked at the pub, Black Sheep Station. As a hairdresser, I've worked for Link, done beach cleanup, and I've catered many events on island. My specialty is doing taxes and paperwork, especially for those who haven't done them for 10 years. Now that you know more about me, it's time for my speech. So, our islands are precious, rare, and delicate. The Preserve and Protect mandate is vital to sustaining island communities and ecology. There is developmental pressure everywhere, especially on the Gulf Islands. As such, it is essential that there be a balance between environmental preservation and community interests. I am now hoping to serve our community in a broader and more impactful role as trustee. While I've not held this position before, I have the passion, energy, and innovation that this role requires. My family has been here for 3 generations, and I remember the island 25 years ago when it was a very different place. I have seen the changes over the years and their impact on our way of life. I look forward to working with the community to create unity and a future where our island home will be preserved and protected. Thanks for your consideration.
Hi, I'm Dave Rogers. I've been on the island for over 20 years. I see the position of trustee as 2 different jobs. At LTC meetings, the trustee must make decisions that affect the community over long periods of time. My focus will be that with the what the OCP instructs me to do. my lead from you. At Islands Trust meetings, the trustees, I bet I must advocate for Lasqueti at all times to minimize the impact of decisions made for larger populations with differing requirements and expectations. I am a team player and I take this challenge seriously, attending meetings whether electronic or in person. I believe the trustees should be inclusive and transparent, allowing community members to speak to more issues. I feel that the APC should report their findings to the trustees, as the trustees are elected officials, and the trustees therefore need to the trust staff. To me, this is a chain of command with the
Dave, you can finish.
I'm just about finished.
I'm just going to let Dave finish.
To me, this is a chain of command. With things like the land use bylaw coming, the community needs to be the driving force. Thank you very much for being here.
All right, our first question from the audience.
We're going to tell them how the order goes.
Yeah, don't worry. Will you change the OCP draft before it goes to public hearing? We're going to go in the same order, starting with Tom.
Could you repeat the question?
Yes, certainly. Will you change the OCP draft before it goes to public hearing?
Yes. There's a lot of things in the OCP that I believe need work. One of those we need a glossary, a definition of the terms. This is a legal document, and according to the trust planners, the words in the OCP are interpreted by the reader or the LTC, which means that they can be interpreted and reinterpreted, and whoever the reader is, they give it the meaning. That's appropriate for maybe a science fiction novel. It's not appropriate for an official document like the OCP.
We're going to go from left to right, same order.
Yeah, I totally agree with Tom in terms of the definitions in the glossary and making it more specific so that there is no wiggle room for planners to do what they might want to do, and our vision and our desires are much more solid and clear. Not totally clear on the full aspect of that because there are changes from the OCP steering committee that came out of the LCA, and so assuming you mean the draft that's been made incorporating all of those changes, then I would incorporate all of those changes. And that's a big point. The province and the staff have been trying to remove 6 advocacy policies because the province doesn't want them. And I would very strongly insist that they stay in, and then when needed, be an advocate for Lasqueti to argue that they would stay in, because the province is going to try to take them out. So.
Well, I have to say I agree with Tom, where the definition has to be a little bit more concrete rather than up to their own interpretation. So I'd say yes, it needs a little bit more revision.
Yeah, my perspective is that the work of the local trust committee on refining the draft is not complete, and that there needs to be a bit more public consultation on a couple items. The local trust committee made 3 referrals to the APC to get some clarity and some second opinion. but unfortunately we were not able to appoint a new APC yet because we only had one expression of interest. So hopefully interested people, when the call comes out again, will consider joining the APC. It's a very important advisory body to the local trust committee. But yeah, the work is not finished.
Yeah, well, I think that one of the most important things which I'm looking for is that I want to make sure that the OCP is reflecting what the community wants, and something that I'm a bit leery about is I feel like as it goes through the planner, the planners tend to reflect and make changes to it, and I want to make sure that it's reflecting what the community wants and not what the planners want, because I think it's very important that it comes from us and not from the planners.
So I know this is something that Tim and Peter have been working on a lot, and I know that it's something that's going to be huge for the next term. And I know the OCP is going to be our guide for years to come, so it's super important to me, and probably you too, that it's not open to much interpretation, and that it also has the future that we're all looking for living here. It's important to guide our progress so that things we don't want happen. Don't forget, things we don't want don't happen. There we go. All right.
I've already made a presentation to the LTC about the amendments or recommendations that were put forward by the trust staff, and I was concerned that the input was being brought forward without the community's response and opportunity to be reviewed by them. And as far as the statement earlier about the wiggle room to my perspective seems to be to some degree an advantage to the community, in the fact that as they can take and change their determination and interpretation, we can also take and come to our own conclusions and understand what it is. Thank you very much.
So we give a fair opportunity for each candidate to start, and because I'm left-handed, this question will start with Dave Rogers and go left. And the question that I picked randomly out of the box is, if you were elected, who would you like to be the other elected trustee? You can choose to answer or not.
Well, in actual honest fact, I don't have a problem with working with anybody. My past experiences, I've worked with some real grumpy guys, and I've managed to take and do it quite well, and I believe that it's your choice to pick who I work with, and as far as I'm concerned, I will do the best I can to take and work with whichever person and whoever you choose to partner me up with. And I appreciate and respect your opinions, and thank you very much.
I'm not sure really how this relates to politics, but I don't know, there's also some pretty lovely gentlemen here with me. I think I would be happy with any of them.
I will certainly work with any of the candidates. I'll be very happy to represent Lasqueti with any of these fine candidates up here. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think that when we put our name forward, there's sort of an implied responsibility to work with whoever is elected with us, and so I agree. It's a fun question, though.
I mean, rather than have the same answer, I guess I'm going to say I'm going to refrain on the same grounds as votes are confidential. So.
say in one person? No, it would be a huge honor to represent you, and it would be a huge pleasure to work with any of these people, so yeah, definitely.
I have a habit of talking to anybody and everybody, from Jehovah's Witnesses to whatever. I'll talk to anybody about anything, and I can work with anybody, especially people who have actually come forward and put themselves in a position of wanting to be our trustees. That alone qualifies them, in my opinion.
Thank you all, and thanks for keeping your answers so concise. We have definitely more questions. We're drawing them randomly here from the ones that came in. This one's from Richard Chessum. Given that any elected official has the obligation to work in the system that they are elected to, what are you prepared to do to try and limit the growth of the Islands Trust bureaucracy? And will you be willing to reach out to other Islands Trust councillors about this issue? You can let me know if you need that reread. We're going to start with Dave and do a cycle. Do you want me to reread the question, Dave?
Sure, please.
Given that any elected official has the obligation to work in the system that they are elected to, what are you prepared to do to try and limit the growth of the Islands Trust bureaucracy? And will you be willing to reach out to other Islands Trust councillors about this issue?
Well, I really appreciate that question, because that's a big part of what my platform is to limit the growth of the Islands Trust. They've been positioning themselves for at least 3 years to increase their mandate and therefore be more in our lives. And so my guess is that a significant portion of the 28-member trust council that's about to be elected is going to be new people, given that the survey in the spring had 49% of us saying we wanted a lower budget, a smaller budget, and they did the opposite. So I'm pretty confident there's going to be a lot of new faces. I'm told, I think there's 10 or 11 that are vacant seats that are going to be new people guaranteed. So if there's more than half, I think there's a very good chance that we can shrink government, and I will be very active in seeking out our allies to do just that. So thank you for that question.
Inja.
Same question?
Yep. It's on the table in front of Dave, if you need to see it.
All right. I guess the statement that I have on that front is that I promise to do my best for us to maintain as much influence over our own local issues as possible from within the Islands Trust, and I believe that I would be willing to reach out to other trustees.
Yeah, it's a good question. The growth of bureaucracies tends to be a self-perpetuating beast if not checked. I'm quite confident that there's a lot of public interest in limiting that growth, and so I think specifically, in fact, working with other trustees is in fact the best way to go about attempting to limit that bureaucratic sprawl.
Yeah, well, I think definitely in our current times, I think we're all, or most of us anyways, are feeling a bit of a financial crunch right now, and I definitely think that it's very important that things like the trust are not increasing those burdens on us. At the same time, I think it's also important to make sure that we realize that the trust is our opportunity, or one of our opportunities, to get our needs out towards the government. And I think that it's very important that when we start thinking about it the other way, that your local trustees are here to advocate for what the island needs and send that to the trust. So I think it's also important that we do have these local advocates.
So I lived on Gabriola for 4 years, and it's definitely a lot bigger and a lot denser than here, and they've, I think all the islands grapple with some of the same problems as we do, with So I think that it's a great idea to talk to other trustees and look at other islands and what they've done, and also work with them. That's quite the question. And I mean, the reason we have the trustees, just like Paschal just said, is as our voice. So it's important that the trustees that we do elect have a strong voice and don't back down for what the community and we want for our community.
I'm a strong, prefer of teamwork, and I look forward to seeking allies that will assist myself and the other trustees in a manner to move forward that makes it easier for us to maintain a financial situation that is appropriate. And personally, I'm definitely involved with the thought process of being, getting my information from the community. Thank you very much.
I've noticed over the last 4 to 6 years that the staff and the rest of the bureaucracy of the Island Trust have slowly but surely been, I would say usurping, but there's not a question of usurping. They're moving into a vacuum. If the local trustees aren't prepared when they come to the meetings, haven't read and studied the agenda packages, then it's up to the staff to fill the vacuum. And what's been happening is the staff has just been moving in and taking over those responsibilities that should fall on the local trustees. So my main thrust would be to make sure that our local trustees are prepared when they come to a meeting. As far as liaising with the other islands, there's no question that that's what I would do, because that's the only way that you can limit the growth of the bureaucracy and the loss of local autonomy.
The next question will start with Michaela and go left again. And then with Dave, wrap around. Every candidate among you will claim representing Lasqueti's interest as a top priority. So when you are faced with a decision that violates a deeply held personal principle or political conviction, yet is supported by a clear majority of Lasqueti residents, will you act and vote to represent majority community wishes, or will you stand by your personal principles and convictions?
Well, this is a hard question because you can imagine, but I feel like most of the time I'm in agreement with what the community wants, but who knows, you guys could just be totally different one day. So, obviously it's not my duty to represent myself. Would be my duty to represent everybody. And if it's a majority, my hands are kind of tied. If it's what the community wants and what they feel like it's going to, be the best thing for them, there we are.
Goes that way.
Well, I feel like this question was a lot like my opening. And so I would just like to reiterate that, yes, I do have very strong beliefs, and I've seen a lot of stuff happen on the island, but at the same time, I'm absolutely here to represent the island, and that is most certainly what I will do.
Another great question, and I'm just going to agree with the candidates before me. The job of trustee is to represent the electors of this place. And honestly, I really can't imagine a point where the majority of the island wants something that deeply goes against my personal principles and convictions. And if that were the case, I think I would have to consider resigning or something, and moving. I don't know.
Well, I have to say that I do agree with the rest of these candidates here too. Sometimes it will always be community first, and sometimes you have to cast your own beliefs or convictions aside, if that's what's best for the community, and especially if it's a majority vote.
For me, this question is, it's kind of speculative in the sense of, if we know as a community that we want something, that for me means we've met multiple times, we've talked a lot of times, and we've discussed multiple possibilities, and we've agreed to do what it is that we've agreed to do. By that point, I cannot see myself disagreeing. I just simply can't, because if I am a trustee, and this question is relevant for me as a trustee, I'm going to be leading a lot of that consultation. That's just my role. That's the role that I would see myself in. And the way that I facilitate is to hear, to listen, to allow you to speak, to challenge if needed. And by the point, again, if the overwhelming majority of us is saying one thing, I totally would see myself doing that as well. So.
Deeply held political convictions are different from deeply held principles. So I can't see anything that this community would ask me to do that would violate my deeply held political principles or my political convictions. I just can't see it happening. As I said in my opening statement, the job of the trustee entails real obligations to the community. And that's where I sit. My obligation and my job is to represent the community's wishes, not my own. So the answer to that question is that I would have no trouble following the clear directions of the community.
Myself, I've had an opportunity to be in a situation where I've dealt with many, many different individuals of different opinions, and I've had to represent them. And I have had the situation where my personal opinion is not what the personal that I had to represent was. And I've had no problem to go forward and say, I have to represent the person that I am responsible for speaking for. So I have absolutely no problem with speaking with conviction, completely and totally against my own personal opinions. Thank you very much.
So we'll start with Inja and be going right again. I think you guys are catching on now. So this question from one of the audience members, they would like to know if you have any ideas on solving the worsening long-term problem of people leaving their vehicles in the Falls Bay area for months.
I can't say I have any concrete idea of solving this problem, because I feel like parking is a huge issue. It seems we have to park halfway to the boat ramp most of the time. But I believe the issue really is it might say 3-day parking, but no one can actually enforce it. And people who don't even live here most of the time just leave their cars downtown. Even if the cops were to get involved to impound them, where they're gonna go, I think it gets brought to Island's Trust, and it goes to roads, and then to police, who in turn can't do anything, so they send it back to Trust. Really, I think that we the locals should be giving these people who are only here a couple months out of the year grief anytime we possibly can if we see them arriving or leaving. That's all I can really suggest on the term. I don't know what happened with the lot up by the feed store. All I do know is it's probably a waste of money if you're not allowed to park there. Not that I'm a mathematician.
So before I was a trustee, I was on the APC, and we spent about 1.5 years designing this wonderful plan for parking. And Ministry of Transport, who would have to have endorsed it for it to have any substantive validity in law just said that's nice. So essentially the answer is that the local trust committee doesn't have any jurisdiction to do anything about it. What we could do is help organize public lobbying of Ministry of Transport, and it's either that or completely ad hoc volunteer type stuff.
Well, honestly, I feel like this issue, although it can be quite aggravating, is not too likely to be something solved by the trust. And I think if we want to solve this issue, we'd probably be more likely to look towards trying to do something in the community itself, because I feel like if we can change people's attitudes toward this and recognize that is much more likely to have the effects that we would like.
So, I mean, this is a long-term issue that's been going on for quite a while, and it's more of a Ministry of Transport issue than a trust issue. But, I mean, yeah, it makes me upset when I have to park at the top of the hill and I'm going over for the day, or when I have to see some elderly person who I know has a heart condition hiking up to the church parking lot. I mean, I think one thing we can all do is respect the 3-day sign. Have your friend drive you to the ferry. I mean, what we really need is someone with a tow truck and a large piece of land. I mean, Dad, your retirement could be an idea. But yeah, that's my thoughts.
I feel that this is a community-driven process, that in actual honest fact, we all are affected by the same situation, and in a way, the only way that this community can take and solve this problem is to have the community actually get behind having the vehicles that are violating, either by shaming if needed be, but hopefully not that kind of thing. But the fact is that it's the community problem, and we can't, as trustees, mandate or dictate who parks where. So I would have to throw it back to the community and find out how they want it to be dealt with.
This is a problem that the APC addressed for almost 3 years. We made a false pay plan. We set up all kinds of different places where people could park. It just doesn't work. The reason it doesn't work is because there's no enforcement. And the reason there's no enforcement is because no one wants to complain. No one wants to inform on their neighbors. So it's got to be up to the community and peer group pressure. That just seems to be the only solution to this problem. We really did set up a lot of places where people could park, long-term, short-term, and it just doesn't work. So my conclusion at the end of that process was that it's up to peer group pressure, it's up to the community to enforce any parking regulations.
I was the chair for the Waste Management Advisory Committee for 3 years, and during that time we worked on this issue and came up with a recommendation for a one-off, one-on plan, which the QRD board then sent to the Islands Trust to be included in our official community plan. So that's one of the recommendations that we can include in the community plan. That's the only jurisdiction really that the trust has, to my knowledge. For me, changing our 6 official Islands Trust meetings into 2 and having 4 community meetings would allow us to regularly visit this issue and come up with a concrete plan that is community driven. So that's my solution to this.
Okay, so for this question, I'll start with Michelle and reverse again. If elected, how will you interact with staff of Islands Trust? If elected, how will you interact with staff of Islands Trust?
Well, if elected, I definitely would be interacting with staff a fair bit. I think that it's very important to work with the staff because ultimately they're going to help and guide us through things. But certainly going to this, I feel very, I'm also feel like I'm definitely going to scrutinize a lot what the staff is doing because I realize that they are there all the time. They see us come and go, and for them, there's a lot of things where it can be easier for them to try to pass things off on trustees without us because we don't yet fully know all the ropes. And so I think that it's very important to be diplomatic, but also to really pay attention to what the staff is putting forward.
Yeah, so my experience is that staff will make a lot of recommendations based on things that might work in other jurisdictions. Most of the planning staff goes to urban planning training and learns a lot of stuff that's really not applicable on rural islands. You know, the staff is there as support to help the decision makers advance their agenda of what they're trying to accomplish. So of course, like dealing with anyone, you know, being polite and respectful is certainly the way to get the best help that you can. But there's nothing wrong with standing your ground and demanding what it is that you want.
Well, I gotta say I agree with both of you. Polite and respectfully, obviously, but at the same time quite wary because of what you both have just said.
As the minute taker, I've worked with much of the staff, and I just found out this week actually that the planner for Lasqueti is moving on next week. So we will have new staff to work with, and without question, polite and courteous. Of course, that's how we get anything done. And I would also add just simply a lot of emails, phone calls as well. Because the point being, as a trustee, if we are prepared for our meetings, if we know the issues, if we've asked the questions before the meetings of staff, that staff need to answer because they know everything, that they're paid full time to know this stuff, right? And if we've informed ourselves before the meetings, then we can perform the role that we really need to perform, which is we direct the staff. We reflect what the community wants, and we tell the staff how to do it. So, yeah, I'll stop there.
Well, who would have thought? I spent the last 2 weeks, I've made several phone calls to the Northern office, and this is my conclusion. The reason the staff is kind of disgruntled because the local trustees and a lot of the islands come to the meetings and they're not prepared. They haven't read the agenda package, and the staff feels disrespected. And so they do what they do, and here's what they do. A local trustee makes a motion that kind of makes sense, but doesn't to the staff. So the staff responds and turns it off. A motion, staff turns it off. The reason they turn it off is because they know that the local trustees aren't prepared. They've done a lot of work and they've been disrespected. From my conversations with them, I realized that my approach is correct. You read the stuff, you study it, you learn it in depth so that you can have meaningful conversations with the staff. They appreciate it.
From my experience, I've actually been on the other side of the table, and I believe that most of the people on the staff are very experienced, knowledgeable professionals, and yes, they have personal opinions and they have their own personal difficulties, but my approach would be the fact that I need to persist to maintain an approach that is acceptable, and individuals can be easily spoken to and with no interruption, are, you know, we're just, they're just people, and they have problems just like we do, and we need to take and work with them because we have A, no choice, and B, we need them too.
I mean, obviously, going to interact with staff, and I'm not sure so much that they have, this is my speculation, I'm not so sure that they have an agenda, but they're knowledgeable, and I know when I know a lot about something and I'm having a discussion with somebody and they know nothing and they're trying to tell me stuff, it's kind of annoying. So I can see that they might be trying to push something because they're like, oh my god, this idiot, another one. So I intend not to be the frustrating person that when I will go to meetings, I will know what I'm talking about, I will know what we're doing, and be able to interact with the staff in a way that I can stand up to them for what I want and what I believe, because I've done my homework and I know what we're trying to accomplish with the meeting.
For this question, we'll start with Tim, and we'll be going to the right. Do you believe that climate change should be declared an emergency? And if so, what do you propose to do in order for us to adapt to the changes on Lasqueti and to mitigate the risks? I'm very concerned that we are very vulnerable here and that we could be faced with serious disaster. Thank you.
You want that read again?
Maybe you can just bring it up to us.
I will, but maybe one more time.
I'll give you the question about the commentary. Do you believe that climate change should be declared an emergency? And if so, what do you propose to do in order for us to adapt to the changes on Lasqueti and to mitigate the risks?
So, Trust Council last year did declare a climate change emergency. The Lasqueti Local Trust Committee hasn't done so, but certainly could. I think when it comes to mitigation, probably the most powerful tool that I've seen was when we had the fellow with the sea rise modeling come and show us some mapping. And I know a bunch of community members were part of that. Just as a stark illustration of what, you know, significant sea rise would look like. The other types of, I mean, we're doing already some of the mitigation that's the most important, which is maintaining forest cover.
Well, I definitely think that this is a very important issue, and I think it's something that as Lasquetians we're all fairly aware of, and I think that as Lasquetians we're working on this, but I'm not sure what the trust, what really good would the trust imposing things on us. I feel like we need to work on this as a community, and we don't particularly need more bureaucracy to make this happen.
Well, okay, here's I mean, climate change is obviously very important, and we have come up with emergency, fire department, first responder, we've come up with emergency plans for eventualities. I mean, I think that climate change is a personal thing. I mean, yes, big corporations do a lot of nasty stuff that cause a lot of issues, but as each individual needs to try to reduce and reuse what they can and also recycle, but really try to limit our impact on the environment. And I mean, it helps in Lasqueti because everything we bring here, we have to haul on our backs numerous times, which I find limits my, you know, overconsumption and other things that cause climate change. But I know that we can do better, and so hopefully that's something we can work on in the next term.
I actually am extremely concerned about climate change, and I definitely believe that it has the emergency factor. I don't see it as in any way changing to what it was. Some things that the community have already put into place is like fire safe and that kind of stuff, where it's community driven and individuals cleaning up their own property and being responsible for keeping the island clean and using proper recycling processes and stuff like that. I believe that it boils down to a personal plan for the whole community as individuals. Thank you very much.
The danger for Lasqueti Island, I see it as two parts. One is fire, and the other is storm surge from the ocean. So we as a community are doing a lot of the fire safe stuff, and as each individuals, we're fire safing our homes. As a community, and even the trust could initiate programs to make our forests less susceptible to forest fires. And this local trust can also use zoning bylaws to make our foreshores and the buildings on the foreshore less susceptible to storm surges. It's ocean rise and fire. Other than that, Lasqueti is kind of in a sweet spot according to the projections. We will be one of the least affected of the areas in Canada.
Well, I would use all of the power of the trust to make us all ride bicycles all the time. It's a simple solution, isn't it? So I like to approach things with evidence, and I've heard that the temperature is rising, I've heard that the temperature is going down, I've heard this, and I've heard that. And on an island, I think there's no doubt that the most critical part of any changing is sea level rise. So if it's rising, we need to deal with it, if it's rising. And how are we going to deal with it? Well, hopefully we deal with it as a community, because if we deal with it as an institution or bureaucracy, it's going to be bloody expensive. So let me see the evidence, let's work on it together. That would be my approach to it.
Well, unlike Dave, I don't think we should all ride bicycles. I personally am attached to my truck, but I don't anyone on this island would really like getting told that you can't run a generator or you can't do any of these polluting factors. But I do think it's a personal thing to obviously not pollute so much, do everything you can to help the environment. And yes, as a community, we could make a big difference. But like many have said here, I think fire and sea level rise is of the utmost importance, and I think doing everything we can to add to the more fire safe forests. Thank you.
A quirk of our little system here, I'm going to start again on Tim, but go left. Tim gets to start again twice, and I don't think you'll need to get this question up with you because it's quite straightforward. Why do you choose to live on Lasqueti and not somewhere else?
That's a good question, and I think we've all had our own ways of resolving that individually. I moved here from a city when I was a kid, and then for high school I went back to a city to complete high school, and there's something that's absolutely special about living in the forest and in a small community where you know your neighbors and the way we all interact and really care for each other, and also just the beauty of this amazing place that we live.
Well, to keep it short and blunt, this is absolutely home sweet home, and I wasn't built for big city life, and I absolutely love this community, including every single one here.
I live here because when I first discovered the Lasqueti, when I came to an arts fest, I fell in love with the community. It was an incredible women's community, incredible artist community. The forest, the fresh air, unbelievable, and the independence. Part of the huge, probably the most the most common reason I've heard for people to live here, and it certainly includes me, is the independence, the lack of government oversight on our lives here. We can choose to do what we want, as long as it doesn't screw up our neighbors. And as long as we can do that and we're all getting along reasonably well together, it's the best place to live, without a doubt. So I couldn't live anywhere else, and yeah, forest and community, no doubt about it.
I came to Lasqueti in a float plane, landed on the beach of the property that I eventually bought. I was coming from a high desert, brown, drab, and here was Lasqueti Island of paradise, just green. I couldn't believe how green it was. And ever since then, I'm here. This is my home. Every place else is ugly to me. And I really, really will do everything I can to preserve this environment and this lifestyle that we have. The independence, no RCMP. As long as we can keep it together, we won't have all of those things. This is a green and beautiful paradise, and that's why I live here.
My reason for being on Lasqueti is basically I've been fighting to get to Lasqueti all of my life, basically. Without knowing it, of course, but you know, I tried in the 70s and fell flat on my face because I had no ability to finance my endeavors, and I actually am very sympathetic with some of the young people that are here today. I consider myself like a raccoon. I can live in the city, but that's not my natural environment. Lasqueti, I'm home. Thank you.
For me, it's definitely the ease of living here and being outside in the middle of the winter and just enjoying that and not wishing you had indoor, plumbing. But besides that I absolutely love is it's the tight-knitness of the community. I feel like I have this huge extended family that's there to support me. I mean, gosh, if I got hurt, I know that my community would probably bring me meals for a week. And where else in this world even can you have that? I mean, in Canada at least, like, it just doesn't exist. And that's a big part of why I'm here. And that, I mean, I know everybody. And it's really special to me. I've lived lots of other places, but nowhere feels quite like home like Lasqueti does.
Well, I was born in a little cabin on this rock, and I'll probably die in a little cabin on this rock. There's just really no place like this anywhere else in the world.
Thank you. Another quirk of our little system here. Michelle, this question will go to you, and we'll move clockwise again. Do you think it's important to participate in trust council committees? And if so, why? Do you think it's important to participate in trust council committees? And if so, why?
Yes, I do think it's important because I feel like this is another avenue for us to bring the needs of our island to the government. And I think that every avenue we have should be taken and should be explored. And I think this is very important.
To me?
Which way we?
I totally agree with Paschal. The more we are able to influence what's going on in the Islands Trust, the more chance we have to make changes and know what's going on, because it's important to know what's going on in the world and the other islands besides us.
I basically agree with what they're saying. The fact is I understand that if you're not at the table, you can't make the decision. And so if you choose not to be at the meeting or at the council, then you basically by default failed. So yes, I definitely am in favor of people attending trust council. Thank you.
Tom?
It might be important, but I don't intend to participate in any island trust committees. My focus is on Lasqueti Island and Lasqueti Island issues. However, I realize that the Islands Trust Council is extremely important for Lasqueti Island. So I will definitely participate in the Island Trust Council, and I will network with the other trustees in order to push Lasqueti-centric issues that the other islands can also embrace. Because we can only do so much. There are directives in the Island Trust Policy Statement that our local trust committees have to follow. So I will use my influence at the Trust Council to ensure that the Islands Trust Policy Statement is compatible with our wishes and desires.
So the committees, it's kind of nebulous here. So there are specific committees. There's a budget committee, like finance committee. There's a governance committee, and I know there's a couple more. Tim would know those. And so those are specific to promoting the Islands Trust. That's why they exist. They are there to help the Islands Trust do whatever it is that the Islands Trust wants to do. I'm not going to be part of any of those committees. I'm going to represent this island. And if I am part of those committees, then I need to take the perspective of all islands into my thinking and try to represent all islands. Otherwise, that would not be fair to sit on those committees. And so it makes no sense for me to represent Lasqueti and be part of those committees. I want our issues dealt with at Trust Council, and for me, I want to focus on our issues. So, no.
I do believe that change can be enacted from within the committees, simply from a numbers standpoint, because there's less voices or votes within each committee compared to the 26 trustees. So there is drastically more chance for your voice to be heard, but alas, if this is my first time around, I don't think I'll be volunteering for any of the other committees.
So, as Inja alluded to, when you're part of a trust council committee, you are part of a smaller group that ends up making recommendations to trust council, which trust council then decides whether or not to adopt. So participating in committees does have a potential to amplify your voice and therefore the voice of the people that you represent. So whether it's Trust Programs Committee working on the trust policy statement, or the Finance Committee working on the budget, the opportunity that you're afforded in Trust Council committees does have that effect of helping to amplify your voice and helping shape recommendations that go before Trust Council for decision.
So the next question will start with Inja. Go left again. What is your view of truth and reconciliation? I am asking this as the business manager. Watch, I'm not going to read the rest of these. I think, what is your view of truth and reconciliation? We're trying to keep on saying the names.
Okay, 1 second. My definition of truth and reconciliation, it's about coming to terms with events of the past in a manner that overcomes conflict and establishes a respectful and healthy relationship among people going forward. The acknowledgement of the harm that has been inflicted, atonement for the causes, and intention to right the wrongs of our ancestors. Reconciliation must support Aboriginal peoples as they heal from the destructive legacies of colonization, as well as inspire Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal peoples to transform Canadian society so that our children and grandchildren can live together in dignity, peace, and prosperity on these lands we now share. As for what we can do as individuals, I believe a good place to start is simply with knowledge, and I suggest that every one of us take a moment out of our day today to educate ourselves on the truth of the subject.
Basically what he said. It's obviously a serious issue, and thanks to Dana's work, I have personally been educated through her work when I first came here, I was told, oh, no, nobody lived here full time. Are you kidding? Before colonizers came, it's like, oh, no, actually, there's probably 3,000 people in the False Bay area. That's unbelievable to me. That's way more than what we are. So the technology, the knowledge, the history is just overwhelming to me. So that doesn't speak to what happened in between. And as a representative, a government representative, of course, a huge part of the job is to rekindle those relationships that have been horribly broken in the somewhat recent years, and thankfully are starting to be repaired now. So.
I believe we have a moral obligation in this issue. The white settlers came here and just kind of took everything. I mean, they stole it. And they stole it honestly, of course, but they didn't steal it. So I think we have a moral obligation to do something to redress that historical wrong. And I don't like to think about it. It's depressing what's happened to the native population and the culture that used to exist here. It was wiped out by disease and by disease and by disease until they didn't have a chance when our ancestors came here. And we are now at a state of civilization where we can attempt to do some sort of redress and reconciliation, and I totally support it.
I actually grew up in the Arctic, and I was privileged to be accepted as a member of the community. And when I went to school, I was the only white person in the class. And this is actually a very sensitive piece of information to my person. The people in the community accepted me and my community now. They've had some serious problems with accepting them. So I am actually really, really seriously concerned. Thank you very much.
So I can, sit up here, wear my orange shirt, and yeah, it's a start what the government's doing. It's a start to having a day where we stop to mention, but the thing is, it's every day for the Indigenous people here. I went to Port Hardy this summer, and I was walking the same boat dock, as I tend to do, and I talked to these guys, and they're really nice for coffee, and they start telling me about their life. And I mean, they're Indigenous fishermen, and just their goals in life were to get off drugs and talk about, they were telling me about all their family members who died and are homeless. And I mean, it's great that we're, doing stuff on Lasqueti and being aware, but there's so much more work to be done. And no simple solution.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point we all understand fairly well that this is a very large issue, and I think it's a very important one for us. And I think it is very important that we've started opening dialogue, and I think that working with the tribes that Lasqueti was part of their area is very important, and we need to learn from them what actually happened so that we have a clear picture of what happened, and then we also need to listen to them to figure out what we can do to help. I think it's very important.
Yeah, so another great question. To me, the phrase that truth precedes reconciliation is really important, because the truth contains a lot of really painful details that are, unpleasant to dwell on and pleasant to think about, the cruelty and the injustice that's been meted out to First Nations historically by the settler populations and by our governments. And the reconciliation is the next part, and that's about learning to respect and find ways to build relationships and work together. I'm super thankful to Dana and the Lasqueti archaeology team for helping bring that to all of us as as a current possibility to build those new relationships, and I see First Nations as potentially really good and important allies for us.
Pretty simple question. How many times have you attended the Islands Trust meetings? Sorry, we'll start with Michaela and we'll go clockwise. So Michaela, Dave, and then Tom. How many times have you attended the Islands Trust meetings?
You starting?
Okay, well, I read the last 255 pages of the last meeting, the notes of the last meeting. That was intense, and I still wanted to do this afterwards, so it's important. Yeah, I haven't attended one in person. I'm a busy person at this point, and I mean, I have first responder meetings, I have JFC meetings, but I'm looking forward to attending more trust meetings despite the extremely extensive package that comes along with it.
I, similar to her, have not attended a lot of meetings. I consider them extremely important. I did manage to get through the 200 and something pages of the last meeting package, and made a presentation to the committee, and I fully intend to be much more attentive and participating, because I believe that the community deserves more. Thank you very much.
Tom?
This is the last agenda package. Is it me?
Yeah.
This is the last agenda package for the last Islands Trust meeting. I attend all the meetings. I read all of the agenda packages, including this one. This one was, I'm not sure about it, but I read all of them. I don't just read them, I study them. And then I cross-correlate them so that I understand them as they relate to each other and as they relate to our bylaws. That's the only way that you can have a coherent and meaningful conversation with the staff. It's the only way you can show respect to the staff for the work they've done, and they really appreciate it. They respond. They make a recommendation. If you're able to make a coherent argument, dissing that recommendation, they're perfectly willing to adapt, but you, as a trustee, have to be informed.
Well, on the agenda packages, I'll speak to that in a second, but in terms of a number, I know that I've been paid to go to over 40 in the last 6.5 years. Then the last 3, I went without being paid, and I'm pretty sure there was 2, 3, or 4 before I became the minute taker. So we're pushing 50, and I have to admit that I do have a bit of a problem. Because I was paid to read the agenda package cover to cover, I haven't been able to kick that habit. So I've done it the last 3 meetings as well, and it's a problem. But it's a good problem. That's a joke, and not a very good joke, of course. But anyway, so yeah, I read all the packages, and I've been to every meeting for the last 7.5 years.
Unfortunately, no, I have not attended any meetings, but I do intend to start attending them, even if I do not get elected.
This is actually not an easy question, because I would have to do some serious calculating to try to figure out how many meetings I've been to over the past 8 years. Suffice it to say, I don't think I've missed any.
I would say I've probably been to something around 4 to 6 meetings. It's hard to exactly recall. None of them were particularly recently, but if elected, I certainly would come prepared.
So the next question will start with Dave Olson. We'll go left again to Tom and then around. Do you support bylaw enforcement to uphold the Islands Trust Preserve and Protect mandate.
So, do I support? My understanding of the process is that a complaint is made to bylaw enforcement, and then bylaw enforcement investigates it, and then they write a report to the local trust committee with a recommendation from their point of view. So, do I support it? I mean, it is. Maybe I should read the question again. Do you support bylaw enforcement to uphold the Islands Trust Preserve and Protect mandate? I mean, yes, in the sense of hopefully. I would assume, I'm going to try to interpret this in a very short amount of time. Bylaw enforcement, my understanding then is to enforce the rural land use bylaws. So if there is an infraction on that, those bylaws are supposed to represent our official community plan. That's the planning interpretation of our community plan. So I will stop.
Yes, I'm not sure I support the methods that are being used nowadays because they're so ineffective. They just don't work. You have to inform on your neighbor, and I believe they want two people, two reports of bylaw violations before they actually do enforcement. And then they don't really do enforcement. They just kind of wander around and give people trouble. I definitely believe that the mandate of the Islands Trust, all of it, should be enforced. And it isn't being. That's just how it is. But I believe it should be, and I believe there should be another method other than asking our neighbors to inform on each other in order to do it.
I actually agree very wholeheartedly with Tom that the complaint-driven process is basically designed to create strife in the community, and I would like to see a different process of being able to have attention brought to violations, but at the present time that is not available. I do believe that the bylaws that are in place to preserve and protect are there by design of the community, because hopefully the community has had the opportunity to put them forward. So preserve and protect, yes, I would believe that they should be enforced.
Okay, well, obviously we don't really want to inform on our neighbor. I think there actually has probably been island feuds in the past over informing back and forth on neighbors. And I don't think that's something that any of us wants besides for entertainment in the middle of winter. But I'm not sure what the other option is. Is the other option having an enforcement officer come by and check everybody out to make sure they're following the letter of the bylaw? I mean, I'm all for upholding laws that make sense for our community and that keep us, unique and keep our way of life protected and sustained. But I'm not sure about what's the best way to do that, as we've all talked about. I mean, we've all said that we don't really like informing on our neighbors. So there we are.
Well, I believe that, without enforcement, the bylaws are sort of pointless in themselves, because otherwise they're just words on a piece of paper. But I do agree that I don't think the current methods are very effective.
So my perspective is that our bylaws are ours as a community, and they should be reflective of what's in our OCP. And if there's bylaws that we don't like in our bylaws, then we need to change them. And I can think of home occupation that we may want to be more definitive on what we are choosing to include in that, for example. The complaint-driven model is certainly not ideal, especially in a small community. As I understand it, the other model is proactive enforcement by outside bylaw enforcement. And I don't know that any of us would feel that was better. So it's a tough one.
Well, I honestly think Michelle said it best, because without any of the enforcement, why would we need the bylaws? And why would we spend the time discussing what to put into bylaws? It just seems kind of pointless without any kind of enforcement.
Thanks. It's 8:30, so we're gonna go 15 more minutes of questions. We haven't even got to the bottom of the ones you guys sent in, so rather than taking questions from the audience, we'll just keep working through the questions that were pre-submitted, if that's okay with everyone. So we've got 15 more minutes to get through a couple more questions. And this one will start with Dave, and then we'll wrap around and go to Tom. A claim has been made that some candidates want to be part of government to rely on the salary. Please comment and provide your motivation for running for this position.
Well, I have to be honest with you. I'm an old age pensioner, and I don't have a hell of a lot of income. But that's not the reason I'm running. The reason I'm running is because I believe that the community needs to have a person representing them that is capable, and I've had actually quite a bit of experience in boardrooms and stuff like that. And I believe that I can come to the table with some serious ability, and other than that, yeah, that's pretty much my reasoning.
If I'm elected to this position, it'll end up costing me money. And I'm running because I see an imminent danger to Lasqueti Island. All of our rural land use bylaws, our OCP, they're all coming up for review and revision in the next 4 years. And we absolutely, if we want to maintain our islands the way it is, we need strong, informed, working trustees who are willing to read the agenda packages, engage the staff in meaningful conversation, and push forward Lasqueti-centric initiatives. And that's why I'm running. This is not something that I plan to do. I'm doing it because I've detected a deficiency in the local trust committee's interactions with the staff. And I'm hoping that by being there and being an informed trustee, I can push our agendas forward.
So as I mentioned in my opening statement, I am going to try to reduce our salary. So I am not running for the salary. I am running because I see the government expanding. I see the Islands Trust setting itself up to greatly expand in the next few years. They just made a big try at that we pushed back, and I want to be part of that pushback. That's the only reason I'm running. I have no desire to actually be a trustee. I just want to keep our independent lifestyle safe, and I want to stop government overreach. It's very simple.
Well, I just want to start off, has anyone seen the salary? Because it's definitely not what I'm running. I'm running to try to make a positive change within this community from the inside.
Yeah, speaking from personal experience, the salary is not a reason to run for trustee. It's a labor of love. There's no way that the salary even comes close to the amount of time and energy that it takes to do a good job as trustee. So categorically, the answer is no.
I view this, quite honestly, as a community service, and pretty much I feel like it is time for me to step up and help the community out more, because I've lived here a long time, and I feel like at this point I've picked up quite a few tools that I feel like will be useful, and I feel like this is one way that I can offer to the community support, because the community is very important to me.
Well, if you want to become Prime Minister, you have to start somewhere. So, here I am. So as these guys have said, it's more than an honorarium, but for me, I have a lot of work on Lasqueti. I make myself a lot of work. I create work. The reason I'm running for trust is because I have a unique skill set that is very well suited to the Islands Trust, and I already do a lot for the community. And yes, it helps, but I really like to do something that would have, a bigger impact on my community. And the reason I started thinking about this was because I was asked by a couple of the elders on the island to run, and I thought about it, and it seemed like a good idea to me.
Okay, so this time I'll start with Tom, and we'll immediately wrap around to Dave. What would you vision to help with the lack of rental property on island and/or helping young people to get established on island?
This is a real problem. We have a 10-acre minimum, and that was put in before the Islands Trust. It was put in to limit development on Lasqueti Island. I supported it then, I support it now. However, we have to have affordable long-term rental for the young people on this island. And if I am elected, I intend to push forward and bring forward that question. Like I said in my opening statement, the OCP highlights the need. I think it's time that the community started discussing the way of doing it. And I have ideas. The problem is you have to avoid Airbnb every summer and the people get kicked out of their house. So we make bylaws, if we can, that only leases. You have to have a lease, a 1-year lease if you're going to rent your guest cabin. That would prevent people from kicking people out and turning it into B&B. I have lots of other ideas, but it's got to be a community-driven initiative. Very popular question.
I have to agree with Tom that this is an extremely complicated and deep issue. It's not just a Lasqueti-wide issue, it's country, worldwide. If I had a magic wand, I would make it all go away, but I don't. The fact is I believe that it's a situation that the community has to take and come forward and explain or figure out how they want to take and see our young folks stick around, because if they don't have any houses, we're going to turn into a whole bunch of old farts doing nothing. We need our young people, and we as a community need to take and figure out how to take and support them without actually paying for their housing. Thank you very much.
Well, as for young people getting established, I don't think it's a great idea to come here if you don't have some skills. That's number one. As for the rental issue, we have other islands. This is one thing where it's really interesting to look at other islands and who have way greater density than us and still have, Gabriel, I think it's tiny lots, and they still have exactly the same rental problem as we do. I think we're going to have to get creative as a community. Vacancy tax like they do in Vancouver for people who are never here. They're here for 2 weeks a year and have a place. Maybe incentives for people who have lots of land to build a cabin or two. I think there's other options than the Islands Trust increasing density.
I think this is one of the most important issues facing us today here, and I have quite a few ideas, but one of the biggest things I think we can do is look to other places in the world. We're not the first place to have to deal with this issue. We won't be the last, and I feel like it's very important to look around and find solutions that actually work and take some steps forward on this. I think this is one of the most important issues we're facing as a community.
The local trust committee has very limited powers to address housing, and this is something that's reflected, as Michaela mentioned, on the other islands. Increase in density does not necessarily increase availability of affordable and attainable housing for younger people. It's a real issue, and my perspective is that this is something that we need to address in a community-based way that's maybe some outside-the-box thinking. There's a lot of available density on the island, and we need to come up with creative ways to help get younger people here on properties.
Well, I agree with Tim. I think it's going to take a creative mind. I see the topic of housing and possibly opening up the option of renting out guest cabins as one of the top most pressing topics within the community at the moment. And the problems I do foresee are, to my understanding, the trust only has the option of keeping the bylaw in place or eradicating it entirely. It has no power over attaching clauses or prerequisites. Therefore, it has the possibility of drastically altering our population size and in turn the community as a whole, or a majority just turning them into Airbnbs, which are obviously more profitable but which wouldn't solve housing issues at all. I'm not entirely against it, but I think the topic requires much more community input, or in my opinion, have the local residents vote first, and as it has the opportunity to drastically change all of our lives. So I'm not going to have a firm stance on this one at the moment. I do realize the trust has zoning options to possibly create a zoned area with smaller lot size, with affordable housing in mind, but then who decides where or who's in charge of that property, which is now vastly more valuable than before. So a lot of problems there.
So my observations of the Islands Trust for the last 8 years is that they just don't have the capability of dealing with this. My own personal approach would be not to add bureaucracy to our lives through putting a housing crisis on the backs of government and hoping that they might do something. My platform includes reducing the number of official meetings from 6 to 2 so we can have 4 community meetings every year to talk about issues like this, to come up with a plan that we support. And I have seen many amazing examples of how to deal with this issue on island. We have the knowledge, we have the skills, we have the history of dealing with this kind of stuff already. So as a community, I have no doubts that we can resolve this. And of course, it's probably the #1 issue. So.
Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me now? Okay, so I was wondering if it was all right with the candidates that we go for, because I think it's like 40. So I was wondering if we could go 15, 20 minutes with the audience. If you guys are wanting to go over 9 o'clock, are you guys all good about going over 9 o'clock? Well, then that's easy. We'll just go to the candidates closing and then we're done. Is that what you guys want to do? Hands up if that's what you want to do. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So we're going to go from Dave that way, and then we'll have closing remarks and we're done.
I believe that how a person responds to a situation is as important as the situation itself. It is my experience that many people react badly to attitude, and I will avoid that at all costs. I believe that my conversation should be comfortable, not intimidating, with the goal of a positive outcome. My interest is to be approachable, to listen, to understand, and to hear what others are saying. To me, this is the job of a trustee. If elected, I'm aware I have plenty to learn, My goal is to seek the experience of others, including previous trustees and staff, with the intention of being a better representative of Lasqueti Island. I believe that the teamwork is important at all levels. My main focus was to representing this community with the needs and wishes at the forefront. I feel that Lasqueti Island and the waters around it must be protected in a sustainable response to housing and other pressing needs that our community have. We must act responsibly while moving forward with maintaining the character and understanding that makes Lasqueti different. I look forward to speaking with you or any or all. Contact me at 8840 or davidcliffordrogers@gmail.com. And if you would like a copy of my presentation, please ask. Once again, thank you very much for being here.
Beyond the Islands Trust mandate, the Trust uses land use planning to sustainably develop communities. The role I would like to take towards this development is to research potential repercussions and participate in an engaged community response. I will also stand up to outside pressures and make strong arguments for sustaining our way of life. I don't believe in dividing the community. We have always been stronger working together as a community. A divided community is a weaker community. We need to speak as one voice to be heard. I'm willing to work with everyone in the community and everyone at the Trust, not just the ones who agree with me. We can agree or disagree. That's democracy. We have a lot to be grateful, and I want to celebrate our diversity instead of getting upset about it. I believe we all want Lasqueti to remain a place where waving, hitchhiking, and leaving our doors unlocked is safe and comfortable. Thank you.
So I just have to say, for me, it's really exciting seeing how many candidates are stepping up for this. Because I really believe this is how democracy should be. We should be real choices when you're casting your vote, and not just choosing between the lesser of two evils. That's one of the things that drives me crazy these days. I'm also not sure quite what's in the water up Dump Road, because I did just, actually, I don't know why it took me so long, but anyways, I noticed the other day that 3 out of the 7 candidates are from up Dump Road, so definitely be careful if you're drinking water up there. I also believe that one of the great advantages of having a local election is that we already know everybody, and no one is a stranger. I believe that our contributions and actions in the community show our true colors and intentions. As in most small communities, our reputations precede us, good and bad. This is an important indicator of who and who will not be the best representatives for Lasqueti. I hope I will have your vote on October 15th. Thank you all for coming out. Thanks to all the candidates. Thanks to the LCA for hosting us, and thank you all for coming out. If you have any questions, I'm happy to talk.
I want to thank all of you for coming and listening to your candidates tonight, and for all the great questions. I also want to thank our moderators, Lisa and her team, for the work organizing and running this meeting and providing everyone an opportunity to hear directly from your candidates. I'd also like to thank all the candidates for putting their names forward and engaging in this exercise of democracy on our island. Like other island communities, we face challenges from development, an aging population, and a shortage of accessible housing for younger individuals and families. While local government can address some of these issues to a degree, there is much that falls outside the jurisdiction of the Islands Trust, and it's my belief that we also need to look at community-based solutions outside of the constraints of the local government channels. Our local trust committee should be open-minded and willing to facilitate these initiatives where possible, and to advocate to other levels of government on behalf of our community where appropriate. I believe it's also important to carefully consider the potential impacts before making any radical changes to our land use bylaws, and that any changes will require extensive community consultation before being made. As your trustee, I would continue to support robust public engagement in the decision-making process, continue to solicit your ideas and input, and work towards solutions that best fit our community character and ideals. I will also continue to build relationships with our federal and provincial representatives and with the First Nations who have rights and land claims in our area. I will continue to strive to maintain the principles of unfettered discretion and to remain open to new ideas. I will continue to be available for your questions, comments, and concerns by phone, by email, and in person. Thank you for listening, and I hope you will all consider voting for me as your island trustee.
I apologize if I wasn't able to sufficiently answer all of your questions. Any issues that I was unacquainted with, I promise to do my best to educate myself on in the coming weeks. I also wanted to put your minds at ease in the case I am elected. I will not be quitting my day job. I'll still have lots of time for firewood-related activities, so you won't be freezing come winter. Honestly, this trust job doesn't have a great salary, as I said earlier. I never imagined myself in a million years as any kind of a bureaucrat or politician, as I'm just an average Joe. But what I lack in qualifications and experience, I intend to make up for with dedication and heart if you give me the chance. Maybe it's time for a new set of eyes and a fresh perspective on the Island's Trust. I do want to thank our moderator Lisa, along with the question readers and everyone involved here tonight for doing a wonderful job running this meeting this evening. And I also wanted to thank every single one of you who came out tonight and showed your support for your respective candidates or who took the opportunity to try and decide on one. If anyone didn't get the chance to ask their questions or thinks of new ones after this meeting, I'd love to talk in person and hear all of your thoughts, opinions, and concerns regarding our island's future. I'm reachable via email at injasemail@gmail.com or over phone at 250-240-4162. Thank you all. Have a great night, everybody.
Well, I think all the candidates and likely everyone in this room want the same general things. Leave Lasqueti alone, to be what we are, which is of course different and difficult. However, the approach that each of us take will obviously vary. We've recently witnessed a hands-off approach of just going through the motions. This benefited us in the sense of letting the LCA form a steering committee to gather up what the community wanted in our OCP. But the ball was dropped when it came time for the trustees to move this forward, and it is still waiting to move forward. So not only will I get that review done, I will get it done in a way that honors all of the hard work put in by the countless numbers of volunteers. I will not let the province or staff remove any advocacy policy, and instead I will advocate on our behalf to keep them in. I will also be proactive and work to reduce the budget by reducing our local expenses, by cutting our meeting schedule and trustee salaries. How's that for a campaign promise? Elect me so I can give myself a cut in pay. But that's not all. I will proactively try to reduce their policy statement and remove anything that will affect us negatively. My approach is to be proactive, not reactive. The Islands Trust has been positioning itself for years to expand into our lives in a much bigger way. And it is long past time to push back. It's a critical time to vote for someone who not only is willing to take the lead on this, but also has the skills to do it. To be perfectly honest, if you want to do me a favor, don't vote for me. I like my life the way it is. But if you didn't move here to enjoy more government in your life, then I suggest you vote for someone that will protect our Lasqueti way of life in a proactive way. Thank you for listening, participating, and for voting.
Well, I didn't prepare a closing statement, so I'm going to wing it. I believe that the local trustees should operate on the precautionary principle. They should move slowly. They should make sure that they have the community behind them before they do anything. The next 4 years are critical for our island. The OCP is going to be finalized. Our rural land use bylaw is going to be revised and rewritten. These are the governing documents that run our lives. It's important for all of us that we have a strong trust committee that's informed and that's willing to do what is really hard work to keep themselves informed and on top of the issues. The question of affordable rental housing is an issue that is going to involve the whole community. And it's going to have to be slowly evolved. I think that we can have things like neighborhood meetings, like Melinda had during the last RLUB review. Just neighborhood meetings. We have neighborhood meetings, people talk about their neighborhood issues, what they think. We have another neighborhood meeting in another neighborhood. Eventually we come up with a consensus and we bring it to the whole community. And then our strength is in our diversity. It really is. We're able, because of our diversity, to come up with multiple solutions to our problems. It's just a matter of involving the community. And so that'll be one of my major efforts, is to involve the community in the RLUB review and the OCP finalizing. I want to thank all of you for coming here and listening to us. And I want to thank the LCA for putting this thing on. It's a lot of work. Thanks for coming out.
I would like to thank Tom and Dave and Inja and Tim, and Michelle and Michaela and Dave, because it's really stressful to get up in front of your community and run local politics here on Lasqueti. So let's give them a big hand. Like to thank Hillary, Emily of the LCA that helped me tremendously to get this meeting up and running. I would like to thank Ian, who made sure that everyone could clearly hear everything tonight and give the timing. I would like to thank the Fall brothers for being my brothers and jumping in at the last moment to help me. And I would like to thank each and every one of you that came out tonight, because this is huge. Nobody argued, nobody yelled, nobody said anything. It was such a wonderful meeting. You guys can stay afterwards, mingle, but please put your chairs away. Thank you. Good night.